ship that I was assigned to, they sent me off to radio technician school, where I learned basic electronics, how to all the makings of a radar or a sonar and communications equipment. And I was hoping to get assigned to a destroyer or a destroyer escort. Instead, they put me on a seagoing tug, which is a fleet tug. And I thought, well, now, what are we going to do with a fleet tug? Surprisingly enough, I saw more action and covered more water with that fleet tug than most other ships would have. We operated in the Atlantic. We operated also in the Mediterranean. We followed up on D-Day. Went down to Trinidad, helped to shake down some of the bigger carriers, and then went into the Pacific and joined the fleet in the Pacific. We were hopping from island to island, Kwajalein, Enewetak, and then finally joined the fleet when we went into the second battle of the Philippine Sea. They called it a turkey shoot because we shot down so many of those Japanese airplanes. And unfortunately, I was also in on the landings in the Philippines, Leyte Gulf, which we call Dysentery Gulf. You can imagine why. We had over 100 ships in that one gulf, and they're all spilling their whatever out into the water, so that most of us wound up with dysentery. The town was called Tacloban. Unfortunately, we had an admiral who was given the assignment to cover one of the gaps where the Japanese could come through, but he decided he was going to chase after carriers, and it cost the lives of 3,000 men, and I've never forgiven him for it. I don't know if you know his name. He was the chap who caused that. I won't give you his name. But after that, I joined the USS Dixie in Singapore. They broke up the fleet, and some of us went into China, and the others went up by golly to the Tokyo landings, the Tokyo peace talks. And I went home on the USS Dixie. She hadn't been, it was a repair ship. She'd been in the Pacific for 15 years, and it was her first trip back to the States. And in those days, the Navy, whenever a ship came home from an overseas assignment, they would fly a homeward bound pennant, a flag, for each year that they'd been away. That pennant was twice the length of the ship. And that's about it. Right. I won't go into the actions. There were quite a few. And what I remember most of all of it, my first encounter with death. When you're that young, you're not too familiar with the act of dying. That's what I remember most.
Where do you go to college? What do you think of the experience?
Well, I was signed up to go to the University of Purdue, but I got out on December, and I thought, well, I wanted to go ahead and review my math and my physics, so I delayed for 6 months. By that time, Purdue, by golly, was so swamped that they wanted me to wait another 6 months. I said, no, the devil with that. And I had taken courses. Navy had giving me courses at the University of Texas during my radio technician training. So I decided to go to Texas, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I spent 4 years at the university. GI Bill helped pay for it, although I worked summers in the oil fields as a doodlebugger. A doodlebugger was, I don't know if you're all familiar with the term. A doodlebugger was a type of character that worked with oil research firms. There were three different ways to look for oil. One was a sonic way, where you set up an explosion and registered the echoes to find the fault zones or the domes or the different structures. The other was using gravity, where you measured the gravity, and depending upon the anomalies, the thickness of the ground, you could tell the structure by the change in gravity as you measured across the terrain. And the other was, by golly, with magnetometers, measuring the magnetic influence. I studied engineering, and when the Korean War broke out, while I was at the university, I decided, well, there's not going to be any more wars. And I was thinking of any ways, by golly, to make some extra money. So I joined the Army ROTC. They didn't have a signal corps, they had an engineering corps, ROTC. So I got my commission. I was in 47. And by the time I graduated in 50, they called up the reserve. So here I was, a second lieutenant in the reserve, and I found myself again going to war. The good Lord was good to me. I was with a port construction battalion, and as we were getting ready to go to Korea, they already had one there. Good fortune smiled upon me, and they took us out, sent us cross country, and sent us to France, because we just signed the NATO agreement, and they needed a port construction company there. And as a consequence, I had taken some French at college, but I learned another language. I speak French as well as I do English. Before I was shipped out and ready to go to Korea, my wife was a nurse with a veterans hospital where we met in Big Spring, Texas. And I decided I'd get married when I decided I was going to go to Korea. I wish she did. And we didn't see each other for 18 months. When I went to Europe, it gave me an opportunity to travel to a number of different countries in Europe, and I decided I'd also go back to Italy. My people were from Tuscany, just outside of Florence and Leghorn. And for the first time, I met two of my uncles, and I enjoyed my service at that time. Another one?
There's a pop-up in the bottom.
That's probably what it is, huh? Yeah. LinkedIn update. Sorry about that.
And what do you want to be remembered as?
Well, that's a question you will all ask yourselves when you get to my age. And at this point, it's a blank page for you. And there are all kinds, I think, possibly even for you more than for me, all kinds of, by golly, things that can happen that can either entice you to do or... So when I look back, I think the thing that I felt good about was I was a father that took care of his family. And I thank the good Lord for giving me the strength to do the things and take the hard decisions. Because there were a lot of temptations to do the wrong things. And sometimes I think I was just plain lucky. So those are the two things I think are the most important to me. Having met my responsibilities, which is not easy, and you're not always, by golly, sure you're going to do it. And but I took care of my family. I hope you all have an interesting life and handle it as best you can. You've got a bright future ahead of all of you, technically another one. Thanks for listening to me.